Hello, I'm Nobby. Welcome to my workshop. In my very last video, I showed making some little brass grub screws to go in these Meccano gears. And part of the process of making them is I had to cut a little slot in here for the screwdriver. And to start the cut off and try and get the slot as near as I could in the middle of the grub screw, I started the cut off by using this saw. In one of the comments I got, was from a fellow YouTuber, we both subscribe to one another's channels, and he asked me for more information on the saw. I think he called this a wire saw, which it almost is. Now, as far as I know, these are called jewelers saws, made for sort of fine cutting on pieces of jewellery. There's a bit of a story attached to these particular saws. The wife and I visited a car show actually many years ago now, and often next to each car exhibit there are often people selling bits and pieces, accessories and parts from cars and so forth. And on the ground next to one of these cars there was a box that had some of these saws in it. I think they were very old, certainly looked quite old, but they were actually brand new. Obviously they've been stored, I guess, for years, because they still had a sort of a cardboard sleeve around the saw. They didn't have any blades in them. And they were marked up at a very low price. So I thought, well, I'm sure these are going to be very handy for me in the future. So I picked a couple of them out of the box, and I went up to the guy and was going to pay for them. He said, well, do you only want two of them? I said, well, yeah, I think, two would be very useful to him. He said, well, get yourself another one. You can have three of them for £5. This was obviously quite a few years ago. £5 now equates to, in the US, $6.76. So I've got three of them, which over the years has proved to be very useful. Now, as they didn't have any blades, I looked on eBay, and you can either buy individual sizes of these blades, or you can buy a sort of a pack like this, which this pack's got 6 different blades in it. They're marked 10, 20, 30 and so forth up to 60. The one is the, if you like, the heaviest set to the teeth on the saw, down to these, which are almost light wire. They're incredibly fine. Now, these saw blades, by the nature of them being very thin, are very delicate as well. So what I've often tended to do in two of the handles, I've mounted up a number 1 blade in one and a number 2 blade in the other, because often when you're working with them, they can just very easily snap. They don't actually have to the set of the teeth on it. They don't have a very long life, and they can break very easily. They tend also to bend quite a bit while you're sawing, and I think you probably saw that in the video. They've simply fit in under these clamps here, held on with these strange little wing nuts on here. They just clamp on here and on this end, and you use this clamp, which will move the handle end along this bar. You slacken this off to start with, get the blade in, and then pull that back and lock the top one up. More recently, I've been using just the number 1 blade in both of them, because often if I start using one of these and the blade breaks, I can then just switch to the other one. In the third one, I've got a different type. Sorry, this one. I've got a different type of blade. This again is a very fine blade, but it's actually for wood. I mean, you can use blades similar to this in saws called coping saws, which are designed for cutting out shapes in thin wood. These blades are also very, very old. They were in a little tube that was originally my father's, and I think he had some coping saws that where the blades fitted in like this, that the later coping saw blades generally have a pin at each end which attaches into the saw frame. So I've mounted one of these in this one because I sort of occasionally work with wood as well. So I've got the three of these for at the time a very, very cheap price. I've no idea what they would cost to buy them nowadays. Obviously these are going to be readily available, I guess, anywhere in the world really, because obviously jewellers work in just about every country there is, and there would be suppliers of tools specifically for the jewellery trade where you could buy these frames. I think they're also would be available on eBay and sort of similar channels to that. I mean, once I'd cut the made a cut into the tops of these grub screws, I then carried on to use this saw, which is a variant of what in the UK we call a junior hacksaw. This is an original junior hacksaw that I've had this since I was a boy, and this was made in England by, you probably can't see that, but made by the Eclipse company in Sheffield, and it even has a number 14 saw frame. I've actually got a couple of these, and these are very, very old, and you see that the blades just fit into the frames with little pins in each end. The technique normally is to just put this in the bench vise and squeeze it in slightly so you can clip the blade in, and then it will just pull into shape, holding the blade in position. I mean, normal hacksaws that we all use in the workshop are like this. This is also a British-made Eclipse saw, taking a sort of standard 12-inch hacksaw blade that we're all familiar with. Oddly enough, I mean, Eclipse still are around. They're owned by another company now, but these frames are, the new ones are identical to this, but they're made in Italy now. So there's obviously some sort of connection between who owns the Eclipse company. This is upside down, but you can see here made in Sheffield, England, and the new ones have the same legend on them, but it was made in Italy. Anyway, I thought I'd just show you that. I mean, they're obviously, these are perhaps not known to everyone in the engineering field, possibly because obviously the jewellery trade is a much lighter form of engineering, I guess you would say. But I mean, I've always been familiar with these from connections I've had with the people that make jewellery in the past. So I did already know about this type of saw. So I mean, of interest to anyone, I'm sure with a bit of research you could find these. But these are incredibly useful. They're very, very useful, I find, for cutting very, very small screws down to size. I mean, the blades will coat with brass. They will also coat with steel as well. I've even cut with care hardened steel as well. But when you put these in the frame, I mean, my near eyesight is rather poor. So I do have a bit of a job to see. The blades are actually flat, to see which side the teeth are. Obviously the teeth are there, that's a smooth side. and which direction the teeth face. And when I do it by running my finger along the blade, so I can feel which direction the set of the teeth are. The teeth are only in about that section of the blade. At the ends it's blank at each end, so that direction. And what I also found is because this part slides along the rail at the top, that if you snap a blade at one end or the other to get extra use out of the blades, you can then run that along, so you've got perhaps the blade in a little area like that, and then carry on using the blade to get a little bit more life out of it. I mean, these blades are not very expensive, and I think what I'll probably do at some point when I've actually run out of the number one blade is probably just buy another pack just of that blade, because that obviously is the one I use 99% of the time. Although I think when I bought these, the whole pack of blades was literally just a few pounds. These, I mean, I'm be pretty certain are not made in England. They're probably an import from I don't know, China or India or somewhere like that. Although I'm guessing that if you went to a supplier that supplies proper tools for the jewellery trade, that you can probably find better quality blades, possibly made in Europe, to get, you know, ones that are much better. Although these blades do, for me, work pretty well. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you that. What I'm going to try and do is, if I can get the camera to work really close in, is to actually show you the teeth on the blade, if I can. Let's have a go at that. Right, let's try and, if I can, get that in focus. Just about. You can probably see how fine the teeth are on, you know, against my hand and finger there, how fine the teeth are on this. I've never tried to measure teeth per inch on this, and I'm not going to bother either. But you see how fine that blade is, and that's the heavier one out of the set. There you go. And that's sort of how you see these clamps on here are all sort of pretty rusty now, but I imagine whoever was selling these have probably had these in a garage or a workshop or a cellar for years and years, and never had ever used these particular ones. But there you go. Well, I hope you found that interesting. Bit of a strange video, isn't it, really? But as somebody sort of, you know, showed an interest in these, I thought, you know, let's just to show them in detail. I'm sure that there's so many people that are out there doing particularly model engineering, working on very, very small parts, would possibly be familiar with these saws anyway. But there you go. Anyway, thanks for joining me for this quick video, and hope to see you very soon in the next one. Bye bye for now.